Hi. Hello. Hi, thank you for coming. We have about half an hour, so not that much time. What we want to do is give a very brief overview of the Apache NetBeans process, where we are, where the process began. And also there's a whole number of people here from the community who are here to say a few things from their perspective. Also, Ate Dauma, who is one of the mentors on the Apache NetBeans project, is here as well. So hopefully we can actually have some discussion. There's literally one slide just to give some context. And we hope to engage you in discussion and get your feedback. And at the end, that there are even more people involved in this project. I have one slide, but I can't even get to it here. Okay. This is the one slide, a summary of everything in a few bullet points. So in October 2016, Oracle announced the donation of NetBeans to Apache. And as a result, a proposal document was drawn up with the motivations and the reasons and so on. And it was very clear that the reasoning behind this move was to get more community involvement in the NetBeans project. Of course, NetBeans started in about 1998, 1999, the first Java IDE created by a group of students in Prague. And then Sun used it to promote Java primarily. There was the Oracle takeover, and NetBeans became more than a Java IDE over the past years, including JavaScript, especially because Oracle is increasingly focused on JavaScript on the front end. And then this announcement about NetBeans being moved to Apache, Oracle remaining heavily committed to it in the process. So that happened in about, that announcement came out in October 2016. A long process began of auditing the files to be donated. At that point, the first few months figuring out what the process should be, and then actually going through the code, checking whether files in the NetBeans donation could be donated to Apache, whether they really belong to Oracle, what the provenance of each and every individual file was, which explains the length of the process. In the end, we decided to split up NetBeans into different parts for the purposes of the donation. The first part focusing on the core of NetBeans, the platform, plus the Java SE parts, which have been donated, which are in the Apache Git repository. So there's github.com/apache/incubator-netbeans, where you'll find a very long list. And this list, these are modules, and this is not everything yet. Bear in mind, this is the Java SE parts of NetBeans plus the underlying platform. And right at the end, you see the instructions for how to build it. And you need to do a git clone and then run ant and make sure that you're using Java 8, because right now NetBeans builds by means of Java 8, but you can run it on Java 9, and there are tools in it for the new Java 9 features. So support for JShell, support for Jigsaw, support for JLink, and so on are all built in. There are all kinds of features for that. So those 45,000 files are donated, which constitutes 4 million lines of code. Then the process began of relicensing all those files to Apache. About 30,000 we managed to do automatically. We built a tool to inspect all the files for the Oracle or Sun licenses and converted those. Then about 15,000 were left over. And we built as a community, and this ended up being a very useful thing, aside from its purpose, also the way that we worked as a community. We built a long list of all these modules in a table. And so I'm trying to get to Apache Wiki. And there's a row in the table for each of the modules. And so you can see a long table. And people assigned different rows to themselves and then inspected each of those modules that they assigned to themselves for whether or not, for the reason why a file hadn't been relicensed automatically. What was the reason? So in many cases, there wasn't a license, and there needed to be a license, so people had to manually relicense those files. In other cases, there were specific reasons. So there was a lot of investigation going on in that process. And we have just actually finished that for the platform part of NetBeans, so the underlying infrastructure, which is not only the basis of NetBeans IDE, but also of applications at Boeing and at Airbus and at NATO and at NASA and at many large enterprises. That part we have completed relicensing, and today is actually a happy day because we sent out the vote thread for the first incubator release of NetBeans. Specifically, we called it NetBeans 9.0 Alpha, and that is the NetBeans platform parts of NetBeans. So not all the Java SE tooling, but the core, the parts where you can build applications on, like Sun and Oracle is done with NetBeans IDE, or like Boeing, or like Airbus, and so on. So you can go, even without being a committer, of course, you can go in that thread and you can say +1 after you've checked that those artifacts. But if you're a committer on Apache NetBeans, then your vote counts more. But you can definitely check the artifacts and give your opinion on them. So that's where we are. What we found especially interesting about the process is, and you kind of expect that, but it's great to see, a bunch of people were involved who we'd never heard of before. And this whole process coincided with the October hackathon, an October hackathon that was taking place somewhere, and one of the people from the Apache NetBeans community was involved with that and got a whole bunch of other people involved who we'd never heard of. So you can see here on the committers page very nicely who has been most involved over the past period, and this has all been about IP clearance. So these are the key people involved, and if you look at the top 6 committers, 2 of them are from Oracle, myself and my colleague Jan Lahoda, and 4 of the other top 6 are not from Oracle, which is great. So clearly this shows, on the one hand, that Oracle remains involved, and at the same time that other organizations or other people from other organizations are also actively involved in this process. And you can see a long list of people who are involved in different ways in that list. So you can join the mailing list, put your +1 or -1 or 0, whatever, based on checking the artifacts. Then we will have NetBeans 9.0 Beta, which will be everything in the GitHub repository, so not just the platform, but also the Java SE tooling. At the same time, within Oracle, we're continuing to work on auditing the files to be donated. So we focused in the first place on the Java SE part. So we're now working on, for example, the Java EE tooling, the JavaScript tooling, the Groovy tooling, the C++ tooling, all these other features that NetBeans has, that's being processed. And that's really where we are. I think the process has been a slow and thorough one. No one can complain afterwards that we went too fast. That's definitely one complaint that we're not going to get after all of this. It's a thorough process, and it's a great process. And we will, for the first time, not only be open source, but open governance. That's the added advantage that Apache is giving us. And we're already seeing that in the decision-making process. No one company, no one individual dominates. Everyone discusses this on the mailing lists, and which, of course, means lots of emails, lots of potential confusions and misinterpretations, but that's email. At the end of this, we're going to have a really well-licensed, healthily structured development environment and tooling platform for anyone else to build their software on top of, or to use in schooling, educational facilities, as is already the case, but even more so, and maybe contribute code into the project and be involved in it and within the community. So that's a very basic overview of where we are. Maybe Sven can say a couple of things of features that you're working on and plans that you have that are going to enrich NetBeans and the community.
So Oracle was not interested in things like Groovy support, for example, but with Gradle taking up in the build tooling space, A guy from the community started writing a plugin, Gradle plugin for NetBeans, and but the support was like limited. If you wanted to write some Groovy stuff, there was like only basic highlighting and basic code completion things. When we started adopting Groovy and writing our own Groovy things for Gradle, we just discovered that, well, there are a lot of pain points. So I started to fix things, and I'm sitting like on a top of a stack of a lot of changes, and I'm hoping to get them under Apache once the donation process is finished. So there's no big point in trying to get it back into the main line at this point in time, but I'm waiting for the second code drop to make all this work. That should be fine. And yeah, there are different things. So having the platform Apache license will be great for all those platform-based tools out there. Yeah. So we'll make giving back from a company perspective even easier. So yeah, so we're working on that and hope to get more of this. So Kirk, what's your take on Visual VM being available on a platform that's Apache licensed?
In general, whatever I can come up with. Yeah, so I mean, we really haven't done anything in terms of, or I haven't been involved in anything in terms of getting Visual VM ported over, but I would imagine that's going to start happening soon. So I have a number of different plugins that I want to make sure get ported over to this new platform. Yeah. Also, on top of all of the wonderful plugins that we have, is anyone using Visual VM at all?
Look at that.
Okay, is anyone writing their own plugins for Visual VM? We have one. Okay. Yeah, so the process is incredibly easy to do. So I think we should do some more work in that area also.
The whole Apache process.
The Apache process has been absolutely amazing to watch it right from the beginning. I know there was a very tumultuous start to the whole thing, but really, I think this is a model that I think is absolutely wonderful. The open governance is something that I hope would extend to other projects under the umbrella.
Yep. Maybe Johan.
Oh, right, here. You can listen to someone intelligent here.
No, it happens to be me. So I think I'm thrilled that NetBeans is now being developed in Apache, and that comes with great expectations, but also with big responsibilities. So of all the people that complained in the past, Oracle should do this in NetBeans, Oracle should do that in NetBeans. Well, it's now up to us ourselves. We can, if we think NetBeans is not what we want it to be, then we can change it. The Apache process is much easier for developers to participate and to shape NetBeans the way that we would like it to be shaped. For example, if people say, well, it would be nice if NetBeans was rewritten partly using JavaX, that's fine. Then you can go ahead and do it, and I will be happy to participate. Yeah. So in general, it's an opportunity, but we have to be aware that nothing comes by itself. So it's also a responsibility. But I'm glad to take that part of that responsibility.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I think one of the really nice things about the Apache process is that everything that we are doing, other organizations have done before, other projects have done before. We're just following a well-trodden path that others have taken. And what makes it all possible is that each project has mentors assigned to it, or mentors volunteer to be involved in different projects to guide it along and to give advice and to stay away as much as possible, to let the project develop on its own as much as possible, but to inject advice and when asked or when things are going a bit off the rails. So it just so happens that one of the mentors on the Apache NetBeans project is right here. So maybe Arthur can say a couple of things from the Apache perspective and on the path that we've taken.
Sure. I think that NetBeans, like Kirk already mentioned, had kind of a troublesome start, or at least confusing start. But that's normal, I would say, especially for a project this huge, with so many people involved on so many different levels. So how the process works within Apache, that takes some time to get familiar with, and it's not, nobody is surprised that it takes some time and that sometimes things go off the rail, or at least there's some discussion about it. I think it's really good what I'm seeing in the NetBeans community. It's really discussing things among each other. Some people complain about the process, but then what you often see is that mentors then need to step in and explain things, but we try to stay away as much as possible, because the whole point is NetBeans in the incubator of Apache is there to incubate out of it into its own and stand on its own. So the members of that project needs to run the project themselves. It's not the mentors. The mentors will step out after a few months or a year or something like that. So it's really about letting the community learn the roles by themselves. So it's not like we are like babysitting the project. It's more like the project's like in a puberty, and it will probably do some nasty things, some wrong things. That's fine. And we'll probably tell you where you went wrong, but first you need to fall on your face to figure that out. And so actually, I think the community is picking up pace pretty rapidly now. So that was slow until June, July, or something like that. But like now, all kind of external new people coming in, chiming in, helping out with the license checks and stuff like that. That's an exhibit that the community is starting to learn how it works, and it's growing in that sense. So, from mentor perspective, I think the project is really doing fine. First vote going, or actually the second, but for the platform point of view, the first vote going out. That's really great, and I think it's just the first start of, well, let the project bloom a period, and I think it's on the right track.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you very much. So I think there's a whole bunch of things that you kind of learn as you're going along, and with this whole process on Apache, it's impossible to plan too much ahead. You kind of figure things out as you're making the mistake, and you realize, okay, we shouldn't do it like this, we should do it like that. That's one. I mean, I think at some point we're going to be able to really do a good presentation on lessons learned for other Apache projects. But that is one thing, that you kind of learn things as you go along, and you can't plan too much and too far ahead. And the other aspect that I find really interesting about Apache is that it's clearly not about the code; it's about the community. Which is a very different approach. It's more important that the community is healthy and that the community is working together than that the code is healthy. Especially in the incubator stages of the project. And in the case of NetBeans, what I think is special, aside from the scale, I mean, it's such a large project that's existed for so many years, is that we're coming to Apache not to create a community. We already have a community. We are recreating that community in the Apache way of doing things, but we are coming with a community. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a project around that community, whereas I think most groups starting an Apache project, that they have code and they go into Apache because they want to build a community within Apache. And we actually have that community now. But it's turning out that our community is different to what we thought it was, which is very interesting. Our community is quite different. The people are leading it who are very different to who were leading it in the beginning. And one other thing before we open up for some discussion is, that is really interesting, is that, no, I forgot that point that I wanted to make. It's a very interesting point, but I'll make it later, I guess. Are there any questions or comments from anybody here? Insights? Must be a reason why you're here. You're not just here because you had nowhere else to go to. Any comments from anybody? Yes. Sure. So the question is, where do we see NetBeans going, and what is the support for Java 9? And it would have been nice if there had been Java 9 support earlier, and compared to IntelliJ and Eclipse. This is a key question for many people, I think. The first point to make is you can use NetBeans with Java 9 today. You can do a git clone from the Apache Git repository and build it, and then you'll be able to use, okay, it's not a binary, but if you're a developer, you can use Git, you can use Ant. And that's... And there is a convenience binary as well. So if you're on the Jenkins build page of Apache NetBeans, there's a convenience binary. You can download that. You can start it up right now. Sure, it's not a finished, complete, marketed, wrapped up project. But you can use NetBeans with Java 9 today. You can run NetBeans on Java 9, and you can use Java 9 tooling. The other points about IntelliJ and Eclipse and so on. One interesting thing, what I like about Apache as well, is that it's not about competition. We're not competing. We're not competing with any products. We're not competing with commercial products. The only question is, do you have a community? Clearly, we have a community. We're going to be building a development environment and a tooling platform for a community of people who are using it. If you want to use it, you're free to use it. IntelliJ has a fantastic role to play. Eclipse has a fantastic role to play. Part of the reason why Java is so successful is because there are these choices. Most other languages and technologies have one or two at most development environments for them. In the case of Java, we have 3, and that's fantastic. One of the most popular plugin right now for NetBeans is IntelliJ's dark cloud look and feel. So you can have NetBeans look like IntelliJ via that plugin, created by JetBrains, which they open sourced, and a random person, turned into a plugin for NetBeans. So, if you want to use NetBeans, fine. Where do we see it going? We will be here forever. There is such a strong community around it who have been working on this for 20 years. A lot of it in their own free time, not paid by anybody, and that kind of enthusiasm is going to keep this project going for a long time. We will not be tied to a company. I think that is one big difference between NetBeans and IntelliJ idea, that they're tied to JetBrains. If JetBrains were to decide tomorrow, well, we're not going to do this anymore, it doesn't seem very likely, but if they were to decide that, they could. In the case of NetBeans, we will be around as long as people continue contributing to it. And even then, we will be in Apache. You can download it forever. We're going to be there forever, which is really the nice thing that the Apache Foundation gives us. Does that answer the question? On the pace.
And I think the pace.
You're talking.
I think if you compare this to how long it took Sun to open source Java, there's still components in Java that are not open source. Right. So I think the pace has been spectacularly fast. It's been very quick, relatively speaking. And while they're trying to migrate over, of course, those resources are migrating over. They're not developing new features. Yeah. Now, the timing with Java 9 is a bit unfortunate, but that was an outside influence. There's not really much you can do about that. So I think the pace has been good as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but I think the pace is going to pick up a lot. Once we actually have all the code in Apache, you're going to see the pace picking up massively. We will decide as a community when we do the next release. We will just we on the mailing list will say, okay, so what are the features that we will work on for the next release, and discuss them together.
So in terms of pace, one of the people from the compiler team, Jan Dachola, he is providing already patches and branches for the new features for upcoming Java releases. So there's support for local variable type inference, and I think there is from Project Ember for the pattern matching. There's already a prototype, and it's trying to do it all on the native compiler, no additional things needed, just the JDK. So that would be awesome.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the benefits we've seen from moving to Apache is that now you're getting contributions from a lot of places where they just weren't able to contribute before. Right. And so when people do experimental language features, they can actually take the IDE, modify it to support those experimental language features, and you can check it out on a branch.
think also one thing that people don't realize maybe is that there are literally hundreds that we know of, at least, of organizations who have created applications on the NetBeans platform, so on the framework, which means that they know the APIs. So there's like, Sven and Martin, and there's people from NASA and NATO and Boeing and these large organizations, really smart developers who have created large enterprise systems on top of NetBeans, who in other words know the APIs. And in many cases, they'll be contributing large pieces of code back to NetBeans, which they haven't been able to do before on the platform level. But also, they have this knowledge that they've built up over the years in order to build those applications, which enables them, which means that they are ready to contribute code into NetBeans because they have all the skills, all the knowledge of the APIs. We don't have to spend a lot of time introducing people to how NetBeans works because people already know how NetBeans works through all the years that we've been running this project. We have very few minutes left. Is there someone with a question or a comment or a statement or a complaint? Yes.
Does the handover in any way affect the other hosted parts of the project, like the Devoxx, the wiki?
Yeah. Yes, there's more than code involved. There's the website, there's the issue tracker, there's the wiki, there's everything. The very nice thing is that since Oracle remains committed to NetBeans, there's no cutoff date from the Oracle side. No one is saying, well, if you're not out of here before this date, we're going to just delete everything or something. So right now, the focus is clearly on the code. At the same time, there are different people in the community focused on moving the website and all the pre-processing and post-processing stuff that needs to happen there. We're going to use the Apache Euro tracker. Discussion is open about whether we want to move everything from our existing Bugzilla into that Euro tracker, or maybe only the open items, or maybe only items from the past year, or start from zero. And different approaches. There's no decision on that score yet. We have a wiki on Apache. We have a blog on Apache. We have all kinds of infrastructure on Apache. We have a VM on Apache. It's amazing how many resources we've. Apache is very generous. Has everything set up. Once there's a chat that you can join, an infrastructure chat when there are things that are kind of blocked and issues are not being resolved. You can just go online and chat with the infrastructure team in Apache, and there's like 20 people always. Like it looks like 24 hours a day. There's 20 people on there ready to help. So on the infrastructure level, on all those other parts of NetBeans, things are in different stages of the process, and we're not planning too much, but we have an outline. We have a long list of we need to think about this and that and that and that, and it's a table of about 60 different items, and there's a sum of them as well. There was another question up there. The question is, are there companies other than Oracle interested in contributing to Apache NetBeans? The first point to make is, which is what I like so much about Apache, is it's not about companies, it's about individuals. But the second point is, there is on the initial proposal to prove the level of interest in the Apache NetBeans project, a long list of names. And just out of convenience, not because it's needed or whatever, we also listed where they come from to show the diversity. And there's a long list of names from Oracle. There's also lists from different organizations. In each case, it's about 3 or 4 people. 3 or 4 people from Airbus, 3 or 4 people from Red Hat, 3 or 4 people from this place and that place, and none of them full-time. In the same way as, no one in Oracle, as far as I know, has worked full-time on NetBeans for years. It's together with something else. NetBeans in Oracle supports a range of different projects. And in the context of those projects, people work on NetBeans. And so it's going to be on a needs basis. So when an organization needs a particular feature, or when those developers think, hey, this would be interesting to have in NetBeans, that's when they work on it. So yes, there's a long list. Kind of NATO, NASA, space agency type organizations, but all kinds of different things, a lot of individuals, Gluon, of course, many different groups you'll find in this list. Payara is another one, and I think more and more will come out. But in many ways, we don't care about organizations, we care about individuals. And a lot of the work will be done in free time, but eventually it would be nice if there was something like, hey, we have a free Friday. This is something that some organizations in Oracle are doing every Friday dedicated to NetBeans. And if organizations would come out with a statement along those lines, that would be nice. But that's kind of what the direction is there. The time's up. Thank you very much for coming. We hope that you'll be involved in this project. And if you have any questions or whatever, there's, of course, the Apache mailing list that you can join and you can discuss. And we're looking for more votes, of course, on the first incubator release vote. I'm very confident that we're going to be here for a very long time. Quite a few people I've worked with on this project. So, I mean, I joined NetBeans in about 2004. There were people working on that on NetBeans for years before that, and quite a few of them are kind of white-haired, grey-bearded people, not the kind of people who are just going to drop a project. One of which, of course, is James Gosling, the founder of Java, a hardcore NetBeans user, and he really supports this project and wants it to succeed. And we need everyone to be involved. I hope you'll be involved. I hope to see you on the mailing lists. We're going to have a session like this at conferences all over the world. We're going to continue to promote this product because we think it's great. Thank you very much.